Spoiler alert, baby! Yeah, there's gonna be some. Warning officially issued. Alright, I know what you're thinking. Pardon me, good sir, but God of War Ragnarok is a good game. Let me start off by saying that I vastly agree with you. I see where you're coming from, really, I do. There is so much about this game which just screams quality and budget and all the good stuff. Voice acting, cutscene direction, sound design, environmental design, combat flow, animation, RPG progression, sheer massive scope, and wild spectacle throughout. It's all truly incredible. I love the big bombastic boss fights. I love that there's little fish in the water and glowing bugs on the walls and birds flying around and stuff. I love that the water looks so goddamn watery. I just want to slurp it right up. It looks downright refreshing. Look at it. I see it too. I'm not denying any of that, okay? The amount of passion and work which was poured into this title is beyond my knowing or imagining. It's graphically beautiful, ambitious in the amount of content on offer, and filled with some really inspired environments. There's a lot I like. I respect the artistry, believe me. Do you believe me yet? Alright, now, glad that's out of the way. Please don't go activating Spartan Rage on me when I tell you, by the time I was finished, I thought Ragnarok was a bad game. It took me 36 hours to see those credits roll. An arduous 36 hours of mind-numbingly frustrating and bare-bones puzzle design. 36 hours wasted chasing down narratively worthless MacGuffins. And 36 hours spent not playing as you know the goddamn God of War! The credits rolled. The postgame began. That was when I became certain that Ragnarok was not for me. I promptly uninstalled, entirely disillusioned with everything I had just experienced. Controller hanging limply in my hands, I wondered to myself, how could I be so unsatisfied? How could this gorgeous, heartfelt adventure leave me feeling so... How could I like God of War 2018 more than this? How can I pour all of my malice and hatred into a ring with which to find them and in the darkness bind them? By that point, I personally never had any intentions of installing Ragnarok again. I thought the campaign was too lengthy, too ill-paced, and just flat out not a game I was looking to play, ever, at any point. I was left feeling all those 9.5 and 10 out of 10 reviews had somehow misled me. Or maybe somehow I was in the wrong, it didn't matter. My frustrations had poisoned my perception of the whole experience. Oh yeah, sure, the spectacle had heights so high that I could see Canada as I played. But the valleys of boredom were so low, I felt like I was standing outside of my house, in the middle of the valley, where I live. Then, as if out of the mists of Niflheim, came Valhalla. It had been rumored that Ragnarok would receive a DLC, which, as you may be able to astutely surmise at this point, I did not care to buy or play or even remotely look into, really. Then Santa Monica hit me with the big ol' "it's free" stick on the backside of my head. Owie. But you can't argue with that stick, man. Thwack! Free! Suddenly, I was at least the slightest, measliest bit interested. I wondered, could this little bit of extra content be the missing piece, which writes it all? Then, upon doing the teensiest, ittiest little bit of investigation, I was suddenly blasted with golden rays of pure awesomeness. I can still hear the Valkyries singing overhead as I recall my eyeballs reading out something along the lines of, the DLC is a post-campaign wrap-up for the story, but you only play as Kratos, you know, the God of War, remember him? How cool is that? Anyway, Kratos is going on a roguelike adventure in Valhalla with tightly designed, fast-paced arenas and roguelike risk-reward gameplay and narrative closure and new enemies and a new Fury mode, and the return of some of Kratos' biggest foes from the original trilogy, and you won't have to hang out with fucking Angerboda for 4 hours straight before you can play as Kratos again in our goddamn God of War game. How about that, huh? How about that? Oh, right, and did we forget to mention, it's free? Well, shoot lightning out of my ass and call me Zeus. That sounds freaking amazing. Really, thank the gods. You know, I wanted to enjoy this game. I wanted it, Kratos. So I shrugged and decided to give Valhalla the benefit of the doubt, with entirely no risk to me except a little more wasted time. No need to hand me a medal or anything, I was fully aware of the dangers I faced. After a short download, I jumped right back in. Now only one question lingers on my mind. Can Valhalla redeem God of War Ragnarok?
But you are more than that. You have always been more than others. saw.
For me, anyway. Let's find out. But before we begin, be sure to like and subscribe for more Freakopolis content. And as always, thank you for watching. You know what the best part of a God of War game is? No? Well then why don't you march right on back to Dum Dum Camp, you big old Dumbo, because it's pretty much in the name. Combat, fighting, battle. That feeling of being a complete beast as you shred and slice and slam and boom, bow, yeah! Overall, the combat is done so well in Ragnarok. In the main campaign, when the narrative was so gracious as to let you play as the titular character for a consecutive minute or two, you could really feel the love that was poured into this combat system. The dodging, the parrying, the stunning, the finishers, it's brilliant, all of it. There's amazing enemy variety too, a whole 9 realms worth, actually. And they all have distinct movesets and attack patterns to learn. That's awesome. Also, the inspired design work on those enemy models and animations is so apparent, it can't be ignored even if I was wearing like 5 pairs of sunglasses. But during my time with Ragnarok, I found the difficulty scaling of encounters in the base game to be about as wonky as a schlunky. I thoroughly believe in my skills. I have beaten every From Software Souls game except Dark Souls 2, and I'm betting you don't need 2 guesses as to why that might be. I beat Sekiro a month back. I did not hesitate. I was not defeated. So, given I had beaten 2018's God of War on one of the harder difficulties, I foolishly imagined that my abilities would apply equally to this title. Big mistake, but not because I suck, probably. You see, in the name of sculpting a more expansive, open-world experience, the devs wanted to provide a variety of challenges on each map, some of which you would realistically need to grind and level up to defeat. That way you have a reason to return later for side content, RPG stuff, blah blah blah. The thing is, it feels really mega stupid when the God of War, the guy, is getting one-shot by a random fucking fire ape like the thing has received personal training from Saitama himself. Such awesome power, such awesome monkey power. I'm happy to say there is no such issue to be found throughout Valhalla. This is a more curated experience. Though Kratos is once again reduced back to his basic moveset and stripped of his ridiculous armor straight from the get-go, you still feel like, well, the God of War in practically every encounter from the very start. It feels familiar and great. You've got your trusty blades, you've got your trusty axe, you've got your useless spear, and it's up to you to master them all. I'm kidding, actually the spear's pretty damn good, don't sleep on the spear. When you first begin Valhalla, the very initial room almost invariably includes 2 basic human raiders, who I named Carl and Urk. These guys are wimps. They've been disowned from their clan, I would imagine, for being so freaking wimpy. They're practically mindless target dummies. This was a great decision by the devs. If you happened to set the game down forever ago, like I did, Carl and Urk are the first 2 things which made me think, yeah, you know what, I might actually have a good time here. I'm grateful for their repeated sacrifice, R.I.P., you wimps. Suddenly I was having boatloads of fun. The scaling of these bespoke arenas and their various encounter ends up feeling so much better balanced than the exploration-minded base game. Undoubtedly and ironically because of the DLC's roguelike-inspired semi-linear nature. There is light exploration, but you're always pushed towards a singular, focused goal. Because of the roguelike setup of Valhalla, it's generally in your hands to ramp up the difficulty as you choose instead of being surprised. You choose to take risks, so when you get wrecked, you usually know exactly why. That feels so good in comparison to being destroyed by a monkey mini-boss just because you dared to think, that's a cool-looking cave, I wonder what's in there. Oof, ouch, oh, you're on fire, Kratos, loading screen. The roguelike ideas on display here are already well-tested, tried and true. The inspiration for this DLC is easy enough to notice. Hades, the roguelike by Supergiant, almost certainly paved the road here. If that truly is the title Santa Monica specifically looked toward for ideas, I'm so goddamn happy they did. Hades is a quality experience, rich in mechanics and variety, with a great story and practically no bloat. No heavy-handed crafting, no meandering conversations, just good old-fashioned hacking and slashing. Whereas the base game of Ragnarok is all tell, Valhalla and Hades are all show, if you know what I'm talking about. For example, the idea of returning to a hub-like area in order to invest in your character and take in some quick narrative beats is more shallow in Valhalla than it is in Hades, but it's well implemented nonetheless. It added just the right amount of story to something which I think needed to be rather story-light in order to keep up the pace. The means by which you earn and spend resources also borrows from a similar design, and it just works. There's an excellent sense of progression in Valhalla. In the base game, you're constantly acquiring bling-blongs and gobbledygooks to craft upgrades for your weapons and armor. Oi there, Kratos. It'sn't gonna take 11-6 Slim Schloms and a pair of Greater Wimbledorps in order to upgrade your banana hammock. Better get to work. It's a tedious and bloated system, is what I'm getting at. Now in Valhalla, it's more like, meat's back on the menu, boys! Sure, resources and garbage are flying up on the screen constantly, but this time, it's so much more straightforward and enjoyable. Some resources are temporary, only to be used in this particular run. Others provide for permanent upgrades after a run is concluded, and others still are aspirational big boy upgrades, which you receive for completing big boy objectives. It's lean, it's mean, it's fun. Instead of spending time tediously climbing or crawling through mud holes or finding some dwarf's lost toe fungus antidote, I'm running through the gauntlet and buying upgrades left and right. None of it takes too much brain juice to decide on either. Ooh, looky here, would ye? This upgrade makes it so that pots have more stuff in them. Ooh, me strength just went up. Wowie, progress. This is good. My brain says good when I do these things. Those moments were somehow severely overlooked in the base game or made so unbelievably common that they lost all sense of meaning. On top of that, there's even more new ideas adapted here. You can always push yourself for even more rewards by equipping a specific loadout, which is randomly selected by the game before you begin a run. Or by choosing to take on temporary debuffs, you can empower yourself with extra bonuses later as a payoff reward. Those are some great roguelike mechanics which really serve this DLC well, encouraging you to shake things up and tackle the whole of what Kratos and his kit are capable of. And our beloved God of War is capable of some awesome stuff here, specifically a Legacy Rage mode, which has you equip a massive, long-lasting greatsword capable of cleaving through an arena in seconds flat. It is very powerful, and it feels amazing to use too, making for yet another great addition to the gameplay to keep things fresh. While compact in what it offers, Valhalla surprised me with just how much it brought to the table. Some of my runs ended in surprise twists. Sometimes I came within a hair's breadth of victory, only to trip at the very last moment. Every time I re-entered the gauntlet, I learned new tricks and strategies. There was a lot of satisfaction to be found in that process. For example, perhaps one of the most compelling elements of every run is the latter half, where you're challenged to slay a number of Valhalla's chosen. The longer you remain in this fog-strewn maze, the more challenging your enemies become. The thing is, the whole place is filled to the brim with loot and treasure, so you're always tempted to push your luck a little bit further. There's even hidden mini-arenas with additional challenges to boot. It's some well-designed risk-reward gameplay, and I found myself appreciating just how much it helped to keep each run intense and interesting. While some of the most difficult encounters in this space completely obliterated my feelings of self-worth, I knew just what I was getting myself into. Not a single flaming one-punch monkey in sight. Not a single time-warping yak ride, just pure, unfiltered God of War. I even found myself appreciating some of the things which I came to hate in the base game. Behind some doors, there's the ever-familiar chess puzzles, which I found annoying as all hell for reasons we'll get to later. But here they are far faster and simpler in these smaller, more confined spaces. The frustration was greatly diminished. It was like all the good was here, and all the bad had been stripped away. But I wasn't displeased with Ragnarok's base game because of the gameplay itself. Far from it. I was displeased because of the narrative. So it came as a delightful surprise to discover that Valhalla provides one of my favorite God of War stories in years. My problems with the base game boiled down to pretty much one singular issue. The crux of the story was Garbo. The characters were excellent, the setting was excellent, the production was excellent, the cinematography was fucking amazing, the themes were great too. Breaking fate, defying prophecy, infiltrating the enemy, evolving as a person, and all that father-son struggle goodness. That's good stuff. In fact, these are pretty much the exact same themes as found in God of War 2018, and I don't mind. That's how strong they are. So with that considered, please don't go ruining it all by being like, ooh, but none of it matters anyway, or does it? Even we don't know. Case in point, Atreus, boy, he's cool. I'm cool with him. The bow, the wolf powers, love it. He's a cool boy, a good boy. But for about 80% of the time playing as him, likely always wishing you could just get back to the more satisfying and diverse Kratos segments alongside myself, you are chasing fragments of this mask. The mask is built up to transcend the powers of this world. It is so unbelievably, immensely important everyone is going to die over it, and Odin himself is obsessed with it.
You're gonna tell me what you're really looking for in there.
Translate that, and I'll tell you everything. And on that, young man, you can trust me.
Except you go on this wild goose chase, the mask is destroyed, and everyone just goes, wow, no big deal, I guess, good for us. There was no substance to that at all. No big deal for you, perhaps, gods of the 9 realms, you capricious shitheads. I, however, am a human being, a mere mortal with limited time on this earth. A story which has me heavily invested in the outcomes of this goose chase, during which nothing else really changes or matters, only to have me catch the goose just so that you can rip off its fake-ass goose outfit and be like, actually, that was a void of nothingness running around in the shape of a goose somehow. Isn't that great? It's a complete waste of time. My limited, mortal time. I could feel the hour of my death looming ever closer as I recalled all the time spent looking for those mask fragments. I get it. The mask can represent tons of things. The Allfather isn't all-knowing.
He means to betray you.
Is that true, Loki? You a little trickster? I'm just messing around. Of course he means to betray me.
Deception is a large part of the story. Hell, I wouldn't blame anyone for thinking it might be the hook for a whole new set of games. It doesn't matter how good all the rest is. It doesn't matter that there were ulterior motives for boys' infiltration of the Aesir. It doesn't matter that Freya got over her shit or that her brother is a leather jacket model. All that matters is that the thing which is so important, everyone is risking their relationships and dying and freaking out over it nonstop, is nothing more than a puff of smoke. The unknowable power it represents, we don't have to explain shit. That's all in the past. Move on, why don't you? Except finding that mask was a huge chunk of your game. I think it's comparable to the infamous ending of Borderlands 1, where you finally open up the vault just to be like, guess that's that, huh? Wowzers! Sorry, that's kind of shitty storytelling. Actually, you know what? Just give Atreus the fucking mask. He worked so hard for it. After all, I worked hard for it, spending my time playing as a boy who is distinctly not the God of War, having me suffer all that bow shooting and expositional dialogue and last-gen corridor meandering and yak riding and blah blah, just to tell me that the lesson is, it doesn't matter. The characters will progress, but this narrative thread was just a means to an end. I don't like that, not one bit. Well, thankfully, Valhalla gets over that hump too. It's a leaner tale, all in all. Kratos must confront his past one last time in order to embrace his future. It's therapy time, and therapy is coming in the form of gruesome monsters and dismembered enemies. For the past 2 games, Kratos has struggled with his identity. He sulks, and he broods, and he boys all day and night as he struggles to come to terms with the fact that he is a monster and a hero, a god of war and a father all at once. I liked that plot thread, but it should be apparent that it only weaves so far. We needed to see some progress. Progress the base game was unwilling to provide even in the narrative's conclusion. Here, Kratos is moving forward. Peter Parker style, he's beginning to accept his power and his responsibility in full. The realms know him as the god who won Ragnarok, and as they piece themselves back together, they look to him for leadership. This is good stuff for an overarching story. It feels conclusive and important and not stuck in the mud, retreading old ground. I can only listen to someone grumble on about their troubled past 4 dozen times in a row before I begin to get tired of it, all right? Even if Christopher Judge is the one doing the grumbling. But that isn't the only tale this DLC tells. In fact, it's got its fair share of impressive cutscene work. I won't go deep into the details, but Freya and the Valkyries, Mimir, Tyr, and even Helios all have important parts to play as well. The conversations are brief and interesting, and add just the right amount of depth and replayability to the DLC, allowing you to hop right back into the gameplay quickly, even if you find yourself invested in the dialogue. Helios, the Greek god of the sun, is a particularly unexpected but welcome addition, with snark and cowardice mixed together in equal measures.
I admit it's hilarious. But let's be real, Kratos. Whether you should have suspected the consequences or not, you certainly can't claim that you would have cared about them.
He really works to rope us back into thinking about Kratos' former atrocities, and the performance is killer. There's quite a few other callbacks to the original trilogy too, which feel like a real treat for longtime fans of the series. Enemies such as the Legionnaire, Cyclops, Sirens, and more all make a surprise return, mixing up combat encounters and bringing Kratos even closer to his Greek roots. As the God of War grapples with his past, he is literally grappling with enemies from his past. That works. Me, likey. Then there's Tyr, a great character who was essentially entirely wasted in the base game. He had been built up for the entirety of 2016's God of War, only to end up yet another narrative rug pull. So satisfying, much wow. Anyway, he's here for real this time, and it's amazing what they've done with him. Tyr is here to help Kratos become a more fully realized version of himself, one God of War to another.
To let guide your actions. Each choice we make shapes our world.
I see the truth of it.
It makes for a fun, engaging, narratively important, and repeatable boss battle with multiple distinct variations. These battles are dynamic, thematic, and just difficult enough to keep me hooked in. That's the good shit, really, really good. I liked Tyr about 10 times more in Valhalla than I did in the base game for a variety of reasons. And that's not all. Other characters from God of War 2018 make surprise returns as mini-bosses. These encounters help to keep things fresh, while really making the whole thing feel like a moment to honor all Kratos has been through in recent years. After I finished the DLC, I found myself thinking something I thought I would never have thunk again. What if I try and give the base game one more shot? But in the end, is that good enough? Does Valhalla redeem God of War Ragnarok? Well, in my case, no, it doesn't. There's nothing about Valhalla which rectifies my thoughts on the base campaign. I don't know if I will ever return to that slog of bow shooting and yak riding which, for some reason, comprises the body of Ragnarok. While I respect the quality of the game and its fans, it's simply not for me. At least, that's what I wrote originally. Haha! How do you like my narrative rug pull? So amazing, right? Okay, really, Valhalla helped a lot. But it was mostly because of how the DLC helped to inform me as a gamer. I made some different decisions this time while playing Ragnarok, and my experience was immensely improved. For starters, the 40 FPS mode in Ragnarok sucks for some reason. It gives me a headache. Shit on me all you like for not prioritizing frame rate, but I love detail as much as I despise pop-in and LOD issues. So that's how I set things during my original run. I got over that. Now with the uncapped performance mode, I find myself appreciating the smoothness of the action more than the fidelity of the visuals. I also came to recognize the philosophy behind Ragnarok's chess puzzles. They are entirely exploration-based. My frustrations were tied up in the fact that I would hit or explode 2 things, then find myself desperately searching the environment for the third. It just so happens the third thing is almost always through the next door. I find this terribly contrived. I don't want to move forward through the next door, I want to find the third thing, damn it! Upon coming to this conclusion, I realized the puzzles are basic but well designed. You just have to know that moving forward is almost always the solution. Then there was difficulty. I'm prideful of my gaming abilities. I like challenge. I live my life on grounded, alright? Like one bullet could kill me. But I believe the challenge in Ragnarok is actually second to the spectacle. You can either be playing an arduously difficult RPG with 3 weapons, endless health bars, and a couple of spells, or you could be playing God of War and just enjoy yourself. Choosing to play on balance this time around has further eased my issues with the base game. No longer am I facing Saitama's apprentices, but it's not like there's no engagement to these battles. On the contrary, they're more fun than ever. Finally, just knowing that Kratos' journey brings him to the Valhalla DLC and the events therein justifies the journey just a little bit more. Some of those rug pulls have been rectified in satisfying ways. Some of the characters I had disliked were given another chance to make a better impression. I was glad for that. I was glad for all of it. In conclusion, Valhalla achieves something special. It takes all the things I did love about the base game, the combat, the movement, the enemies, and condenses it down into a faster, more entertaining experience. For that reason alone, I will likely keep Ragnarok downloaded on my PS5 in spite of my partly soured opinions on the game as a whole. That's powerful stuff for a 10-hour DLC. Years later, when I look back on this title, I think my reasons for resentment will be greatly diminished. My thoughts will wander to Valhalla instead, and how much fun I had there, and all the great ideas it realized for God of War. Oh, and did I mention yet, it's free. As always, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time.